What's good, y'all? Marcus Frazier from Teachable Tuesdays here to motivate you, encourage you, and inspire you to be a better you. Thank you for joining me today. Greatly appreciate it. As always, if you could, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you stay up to date with all of my Teachable Tuesdays content. Today, we are going to talk about something that I've been wanting to chime in on for a little bit, but I didn't feel like I had the right to some degree, mainly because I've never been married, nor have I lived with a woman long term for that matter. But we're going to talk about the 50-50 argument, right? What is the 50-50 argument? Why does it go a little deeper than the general 50-50 that we believe? What do I think about it? And so on and so forth. And I want y'all to leave a comment below and let me know what y'all think about it. This is going to be a little bit more of a lengthier video, more of a lengthier discussion. Kind of feels like a Car Rock Chronicles. Y'all know I'm missing that right now. But in the meantime, by the way, just a little shameless plug. If you want to check out some Saturday action, the Tekken Tag Tournament Bowl Series is still going on as of the recording and the release of this video. We are 5 episodes in, so make sure you check it out. And thank you for the continued support as always. Now, let's talk about 50-50, right? What is 50-50? 50-50 is half and half, right? 50-50 in the general context of relationships basically means somebody goes half on one thing, somebody goes half on the other thing. And when we talk about 50-50, we generally talk about finances. So we're going to start there because that is the more general or most known in terms of what people talk about 50-50. And by the way, this conversation was actually inspired by a good friend of mine who is also an artist that I've performed with before. And she brought up a conversation, and basically she said straightforward, I'm not going 50-50. I'm not doing 50-50 nothing. She said, when my husband comes through, he gonna be covering things, right? And, I'll do my due diligence as a wife to make sure I support him. When we fall on hard times, I'm gonna make sure I have his back. But I'm not going 50-50 anything. And, there was a bit of mixed opinions. She had a lot of comments. I was going to do a reaction video for it, but I decided not to because I feel like we need to have a deeper discussion about this, right? And I think this is very important because there are some things that we really need to break down. But long story short, there were some people that were agreeing with her. A lot of women were saying, I'm not doing 50-50 either. I don't want to do it either. He's going to support me all the way or nothing at all, so on and so forth. There were a lot of men in the comments basically saying, what's wrong with 50-50? And, there were some people that were saying, in this economy, you can't afford to not go 50-50. You really think that a man or a woman is going to be able to pull everything and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of divisiveness when it comes to this 50-50 argument. So let me explain my thought process on 50-50. While I've never been married, I do want to get married one day. And I do think it will happen a lot sooner than I believe. But nonetheless, I think the 50-50 argument is not a stupid argument. A lot of people think it's a stupid argument. I don't think it is. And the reason why I say that is because I think it's important to talk about finances when you are in a relationship and before you even get in a relationship. Because if you look at divorce statistics, right? One of the main causes for divorce is what? Finances. Couples get into arguments often about finances. And it's bad, y'all. It's real bad. And I know this from people who have been married for years that have told me either their struggles or the people that they know that were married struggles were finances. So it's important to have this type of conversation before you get long-term with a person. I know I've had this conversation with my lady about what our finances will look like if we were to get married and so on and so forth, right? I don't think it's ever too early to have that conversation because that plays an important role because based on how you utilize your finances will determine how successful you are in this caliber of life in so many different ways. And that's not to say that you got to be rich to be successful. No, I'm not saying that at all. I know plenty of people who are not rich, but you would think they rich because they know how to utilize their money and they're living comfortable and they don't have all these unnecessary expenses. They don't have no debt, or if they have debt, they've minimized their debt and so on and so forth. So First and foremost, I'm a firm believer, and I'll get more into this later on, that you got to give your finances to God, right? And that's one of the biggest things I've had to learn, is to really give my finances, my issues, what I'm thinking about, really give it all to God. Release it unto him, because, there's a lot of things in the Bible, and I'm not going to talk about this because this is not the conversation for it, but a lot of passages in the Bible where it talks about financial stability, how to be financially successful, how to be financially feasible with different things, and so on and so forth. But back to the 50-50 argument in hand and whatnot, right? 50-50 all depends on what the two individuals are capable of doing and what they are willing to do. It ultimately boils down to what both parties believe. You have some people that don't mind going 50-50. You have some people that are totally against it, right? You have some men that are like, hey, I'll go 50-50 because, to be honest, this economy is tough. And you combine my income with your income, you best believe we making some shake. And then you have some men that are like, I'm not going 50-50 because I'm the husband. I'm going to be the husband. I'm going to be the man of the house. I'm the provider. I'm in charge of certain things. Even though I will say provision, as I always say, goes far beyond financial stability. But that's what they believe. Then you have some ladies that are like, I don't mind 50-50. I want to support in any way that I can because it's a partnership. We got to make it work. And then you have some women that are like, no, I don't want 50-50. You taking care of everything. It really boils down to what the two individuals want, and you have to find somebody that's like-minded in you. Just like anything else in a relationship, got to have somebody that's like-minded, because if you don't have somebody that's like-minded, guess what? It ain't going nowhere. So I think my question is for the individuals who don't want 50-50. And I don't wish this upon nobody. Let me make this perfectly clear, because when I get married, I don't want no divorce. But we do live in a society where, unfortunately, divorce happens a lot more often than we would like. For those of you that don't want 50-50, my ladies in particular, the question that I have for you is this. If you guys divorce, are you okay with not 50-50 in the assets and the splits and everything else that comes in between? Are you okay with him getting 100%? Because if you're not going to go 50-50, right, then you must be okay with not getting 50-50 if things don't work out, unless he cheated or he was abusive, right? I know some people are like, oh, Marcus, my word, it's the truth, right? If I come into a marriage with someone and we build a business together, and God forbid we don't work out, are we splitting stuff down the middle with that business? Absolutely. You want to know why? Because we built that business together. Some people would argue, if I come into marriage with something that was built by me, I'm not giving my partner half if we don't work out. Some people don't mind giving their partner half because they feel like they supported them. It all depends on the circumstances. But when we think about 50-50 from a financial standpoint, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with someone who wants to do 50-50 versus someone who does not want to do 50-50. I will say this, however, though. You have to communicate. And when I say communicate, I mean really, really communicate, have things well thought out, well planned in terms of what that looks like for y'all. And I think you need to discuss that in detail. And this brings me to my next point, right? 50-50, we just talking about the surface of finances. Let's talk about the other things within 50-50 that people I know are going to say, well, Marcus, that's not what we mean by 50-50. Well, this is what 50-50 really means. It's more than just financial support. It is the tackling of the marriage and family in general. Because when you think about the success of a marriage wasn't successful on finances alone, although finances do play a big part. What if we have kids? How are we going to team up to make sure that we are making sure our kids are raised right, raised with the correct morals and values, making sure they are raised with the ultimate belief in Christ, making sure they are raised to be successful future young men and young women, whichever way it applies. That's another way you could look at 50-50. Who takes the boys to their sports games or the girls to their sports games? Who takes our son to the chess tournament? Who takes our girl to band practice? Okay, they got band practice 5 days a week. How we going to split it? You going to do 1 week, I'm going to do another week. So on and so forth, based on our schedules. That's true, authentic 50-50. So when people say they're not going 50-50, I know they mean from the financial standpoint, but I needed them to look at it from a different perspective. And then here's another thing. If you're not going 50-50 with finances, which again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because at one point in time, I thought I was going to do 50-50. Now I'm at a point where I don't necessarily want to do 50-50. And I say that because I don't want my future wife to have a whole bunch of stress on her shoulders to work and then come home and still have to worry about stuff. You know what I mean? But also keep in mind, this is coming from the same person who, if I had no choice but to do 50-50, I would be perfectly fine with that, because of the economy that we live in. Who is bad? So I'm good either way. I don't have a problem. But there are some people that are kind of like, oh, I'm not going to do 50-50. Or, yo, we going to do 50-50. Straight up. And here's an honest to God truth. Things are never truly 50-50, ladies and gentlemen. They're not. They are not. You want to know why? Because there's always going to be a little bit more give and take at some point in time. Right? Ladies, I'm going to paint a picture for you. For those of you that you may want a husband where he doesn't want to do 50-50. We want him to cover most, if not all, the expenses. One thing that I love that my friend said was, hey, I'm not going to do 50-50, but just know if my husband ever gets down on hard times, I'm going to support him till he gets back up on his feet. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to make sure that house is a home every day? Because maybe you want to be a stay-at-home wife with the kids. That's perfectly fine. My best friend, shout out to Leah, she was that way for a long time. She was a stay-at-home wife, raising the kids. Her husband, Doug, shout out to him, he was the breadwinner, right? He was paying all the bills. And she made sure the house was straight. Was that a 50-50 financial relationship? No, it's still not a 50-50 financial relationship. He still covers most of the expenses. But what she did was she made sure the house was good. She made sure the kids were good. She made sure that, food was, good to go for him and for everybody else. You know what I'm saying? They worked together. And that's what people are lacking with this 50-50 conversation. We say 50-50 or this and that or whatever the case may be, but are we really diving deep into the aspect that marriage is a partnership? It is a business. It is the foundation and the understanding of two working together for a bigger purpose. People not getting that these days. And you wonder why there are so many divorces. And you wonder why things are so messed up. Cats ain't willing to work together. And a part of the reason, and I'm going to just put it out there, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to say it. Cats is hurt. I was just talking to my lady about that the other day. People are hurt. A lot of times people think, people post controversial stuff on social media just for kicks and giggles. And sometimes it could be kicks and giggles. But I would like to believe that there are some people that are authentically hurt. Like, real talk. No bullcrap. People are hurt, y'all. So much so that you have the mindset of, and obviously this is not all ladies, but there are some ladies that are like, I'm not going to do 50-50 because I got burnt by a guy who I was trying to do 50-50 with, and he left me hanging high and dry. Or you'll have some fellas that are like, I'm going to do 50-50. And the reason I'm going to do 50-50 is simply put, you're not about to mess me up from a financial standpoint. Or you'll have some fellas that are like, I'm not doing 50-50 because I want to be in control, because when I'm not in control, she going to say some off the wall things. Or you'll have some ladies that are like, I'm not doing 50-50. I'm going to pay for most of the stuff because if I need to walk away, I want to make sure I got a little something in my pocket. Just in case worst case scenario happens. This 50-50 goes deeper than a financial standpoint, y'all. A relationship takes work. A marriage takes a lot of work. A whole lot of work. And I'm not married. I haven't been close to being married as of yet. But I've communicated with enough married folk who have been married for 10 plus years, 15 plus years, 20 plus years, 25 plus years, even 30 plus years. My mom and my stepdad celebrated 25 years of marriage this year. My dad and my stepmom just celebrated 23 years of marriage. And you know what the key for them still being married is? And that's not to say that they didn't have issues. Lord knows they did. It was working together. And it wasn't always 50-50. It wasn't. My mom, and I'm pretty sure she won't mind me saying this, but when my mom got married to my stepdad, my mom had 2 kids. And wasn't necessarily what she wanted in the financial situation she wanted to be in. And my stepdad, he was a hustler. Not like a hustler in the streets, no. I mean hustler by the sense of he got it by any means necessary. Legally, let me make that clear, legally. My stepdad always believed in, I got to find a way to make it work for my family. So that's what he did. That's exactly what he did. And it wasn't 50-50 from a financial standpoint. But guess what it was? It was a partnership. It was 2 individuals determined to make it work. Especially once my little sister came along. Now you're talking about 3 kids. That's a lot of kids. Right? My dad and my stepmom. You know what I'm saying? They were doing their own little thing with their jobs when they got together. You know, my dad was a manager for Circuit City. My stepmom was a teacher. And things wasn't necessarily always 50-50 on that end either. It was give or take on both ends. There were times when my dad made more money. There were times when my stepmom made more money. That's just what it was. But they worked together. It wasn't this 50-50 conversation. I'm a firm believer that this 50-50 conversation stems from hurt. And you got to also understand that there are some days, and I'm learning this in the current relationship that I'm in, that some days, some people are going to give more than others. And it's not because they're doing it intentionally. They're doing it because that might be all they can give. My girl might be feeling down one day. She might not be able to give 100% of what she would normally give into the relationship. I might be going through some things and I might be busy and I might not be able to give 100% of what it is in the relationship. But you know, one of the most beautiful things that we're doing already that I'm noticing, and I pray that it continues long for many, many years to come, many decades to come, is I pray that we will continue to meet each other where we're at. And this is where Christ comes into the picture, y'all. Yeah, y'all knew it was coming. Or maybe you didn't, but now you know. The beautiful thing about all of this, right, is knowing that we have the ability to meet people where they're at. The one thing that I absolutely love about our relationship with God, and I'm going to show you how this mirrors this conversation to some degree, right, is the fact that Christ will always meet us where we're at. Always, right? When we are doing our absolute best, that is. Now, if you're not doing your absolute best, that's a whole different story. But when you are doing the best you can and you can't push no more, he's right there. It's 100 yards in the football field and you can only make it to the 25-yard line because maybe at the time that's all your body and spirit could push for. He gonna meet you at that 25-yard line and help you. And I think that's the beautiful thing about marriage. And this is why I think we need to disregard, this whole 50-50 argument. 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 50-50 Just do what works for y'all. Meet your partner where they're at. Fellas, if you are the breadwinner and you want to go about that route doing it, and y'all both decide that, then cool. If y'all decide that y'all want to split things down the middle, that's cool too. But, and some people would have to argue that it should never be 50-50. Some people would argue it should be 60-40. I know that's what one of my mentors said. And for me, I think that just all depends. Bottom line, it really all boils down to what works for the both of y'all, right? What does it look like for the both of y'all? And I'm going to bring another component in. I think we have to look at why and do a deep dive into why do we think the way that we think. So if you want to do 50-50, why do you want to do 50-50? What is your personal belief on it? If you don't want to do 50-50, what is your personal belief on that? And not just give the reason, but give a root to it. So for example, my mindset of why I wouldn't mind doing 50-50 is because, like I said, the economy stinks, just being honest. But even beyond that, when you talk about the root of my thinking, my parents have always worked together. My family members that are married have worked together. Sometimes the woman was the breadwinner, sometimes the man was the breadwinner. But either way, they found a way to push through. It wasn't about 50-50. It wasn't about who made the most money. It was about making sure that what we got going on works. Because we love and we care about each other. And that's what it's about. Now, a reason why I wouldn't necessarily want to do 50-50 is because I don't want my future wife to be stressed out. I want her, especially when, we have a child together, if God willing, we're able to. I want her to be able to, be as stress-free as possible. And my root behind that is really just the way that I've been taught growing up. I've been taught to, hey, you make sure your family is taken care of by any means. I've been taught by both men and women that the more you take care of stuff as a man, the more your wife can focus on making a home truly a home. Because let's be real, in a lot of cases with traditional marriages and traditionalism in general, the fellas may be the breadwinner, but the ladies are really what make a home truly a home. And this is not knocking no fellas to say that we can't make some designs and make things look nice and so on and so forth. But fellas, let's be honest. Ain't nothing like a woman's touch now. You had a woman's touch to where you live, and your place goes from a 5 to a 11 on the scale of 1 to 10 automatically. I'm just keeping it real. If there's anybody that disagrees in the comments, please let me know and let me know your reasoning. But from what I've seen and what I've experienced, ain't nothing like a woman's touch. This is why I will forever have the argument that men need women and women need men. It's a perfect balance. But those are just my thoughts, y'all. I want to know, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about the whole 50-50 argument. Would you do 50-50? Why? Would you not do 50-50? Why? What is your reasoning, your logic behind it? Does it come from a deeper thing going on, or is it just pretty general and plain and simple? Again, my final thoughts, like I said before, I think the 50-50 thing just depends on the two individuals. You find somebody you want to do 50-50 with, then do 50-50 with them. If you don't want to do 50-50, then you got to find yourself somebody who doesn't mind that. Ladies, let me talk to y'all real quick. If you want a man and you don't want to do 50-50, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But you need to understand what comes along with it from your part in other areas, right? Because even if you're not doing 50-50 from a financial standpoint, you're still going to have a responsibility as a future wife, right? There are still certain requirements, biblical, or if you're not a believer, modern, whatever, that you're still going to have to present to make sure your marriage is successful. Because in order for a marriage to be successful, it can't just all be on your husband. All right? Fellas, If you want to do 50-50 with a woman, what I would encourage is making sure that you find yourself a woman who's not going to throw it back in your face just because you guys are doing 50-50 or splitting things as close down in the middle as possible. And also, if you're doing most of the labor from a financial standpoint, understand that there still has to be a balance between the two of you, right? And let's say you are a man and your woman is making more money. In my personal opinion, and this is just me, this might be an unpopular opinion here, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that per se. But I will say this, and this is just based on how unfortunately some people act. Just make sure that you find you a woman that's not going to throw that in your face, that she's making more money than you, that will still respect you as the man of the household. Because at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, everything and everybody has their place. No matter where you are at with this 50-50 argument, you got to make sure that you are playing your part, right? And regardless of where you are at in the 50-50 argument, know that at the end of the day that it goes beyond finances, and also know that at the end of the day, you have to do what is necessary to make sure y'all marriage, y'all partnership is successful. It's no one-man show. It's no one-woman show. And if two people are not willing to cooperate and work together, well, there can be no success that can come from that. All right? Marcus Frazier from Teachable Tuesdays here to motivate you, encourage you, and inspire you to be a better you. Thank you for joining me today. I know this is a little bit of a lengthier video than normal, but I hope the message got across. I love you guys. Again, like the video, share, subscribe, comment below, tell me what you think, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.